Welcome to Financially Fluent with Ray Godleski of Southeast Wealth Partners. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate your financial journey with greater ease and efficiency.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Financially Fluent. Today, I am really excited to have Dominai Reeves here with us. Her and I have known each other for a long time, stemming back into the real estate days. So, Dominai, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your real estate background.
Of course. Thank you, Ray. Nice to be here. Let's see. I got licensed in June of 2002. So, been through several different markets. I'm currently an associate broker with Keller Williams Atlanta Partners. I also lead the Market Center Keller Williams Sugarloaf with over 530 agents. I'm an operating principal out of our Keller Williams Northeast, Loganville, Snellville, and Monroe locations. And I also oversee our operations department for Keller Williams Atlanta Partners. We have over 4,000 agents, over 16 offices in the Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. So,
Wow.
a little bit about us.
Sounds like you might be a little busy.
Just a little.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your time here today.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about the intersection of real estate and financial planning. Of course, people are always interested in trends in both of those industries, but there is quite the intersection. So we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, typically I like to ask guests to do a little trivia questions. And I like to give maybe two topics to choose from. But for you today, Dominai, your choices are going to be music trivia or sports trivia. Which one are you going with?
Definitely music, not sports. Music.
I've got to find somebody that'll take me on with some sports trivia.
My husband, maybe, but not me.
Yeah, we'll have to get Chad on. Okay, so let me pull it up on my screen here. Hopefully you can get this, but you just never know. You never know. Okay, here we go. In 1991, there was a hit song by Nirvana, helped the grunge music into the mainstream. Now, they had a lot of hits.
Yeah.
But let's see if you can guess the title of that song.
Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Awesome. Yes, you got it correct. And just for a little fun bonus, can you name a lot of people that's the only song they can name by Nirvana. Is any other Nirvana song you can name?
Probably the only one I could name. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Well, that was fun. Thanks for playing.
Of course.
And you did good. So now let's get into a little bit about real estate. So one of the things I was thinking of is just market trends. That always is exciting. What are you seeing in real estate that's trending right now, whether you're a buyer, seller, or investor?
Yeah, that's a great question. In Atlanta right now, we're seeing a blend of movement for sure. People are buying and selling, yet they're being more intentional than ever. Many buyers who were waiting on the sidelines in 2023 and didn't really like the interest rates in 2024 have accepted the fact that rates may not dramatically drop anytime soon. So they're moving forward with purchases, especially if they have strong financial reasons like job relocations or growing families. So at the same time, though, downsizing has picked up. Many empty nesters and retirees are cashing in on the equity that they have built, especially over the past 5 years. They're choosing simpler lifestyles. There also is a growing trend of people investing in smaller properties or buying second homes now that remote work has become normalized. So just a different trend than the big house and the big growing family. We're starting to see more downsizing, keeping it simpler. Make no mistake, buyers and sellers today are extremely strategic. They're looking carefully at timing, value, long-term opportunity, not rushing into decisions like they may have done over the past few years, which it was kind of a frenzied market. So it's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to interest rates, obviously someone that's never bought a home, they don't have an existing mortgage. They may still think, maybe it's higher than it was a few years ago, but what about the people that are kind of sitting in their homes. They have mortgage rates in the 2s and 3s. I mean, when are those people moving?
Yeah.
And what are you saying to those folks that, might have
So
an interest
they
rate
are
that's double what they
definitely,
already have?
the people that have those, you froze a little, restart. The homeowners that are sitting on the sidelines are those with the lower rates. They're hesitant to let go of those amazing terms. So that is still an issue. But for those who are still choosing to sell, we still have to have constant conversations around strategic pricing, understanding how the inventory levels impact their position in the market. It's all about setting realistic expectations to helping the clients make a smart decision. So what we are seeing is a longer time on market. The interest rates, people still have to buy and sell houses. Life events still happen. And those people, a lot of people still have to make moves. So they are, the rates are where they are. And now they have accepted that the 2s and 3s may not ever happen again in their lifetime. And they still need to make strong financial decisions. And if you find the right house, the right terms, and it still makes financial sense for you to make a move, they are making a move.
Yeah, from a financial planning standpoint, I'm always trying to use my real estate background to help people. I'm not talking about new home buyers. I give advice there, but really the ones they're moving up or they're downsizing, how much should be putting down?
Yeah.
And what about a 15-year? What about a 30-year mortgage?
Well, how do
I'm just
you,
curious from the real estate perspective, let's kind of break that down. You got your new home buyers. I'm assuming they're going with the lowest down they can, but maybe that's not how it's going. Do you guys get involved in as a realtor about how much money to put down, or you kind of leave that up to either the planner or the mortgage person?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, we definitely get involved. You definitely need to have a strong financial conversation, but that is where the financial planner comes involved. When somebody tells me they have a financial planner and that's helping part of the process, I'm very grateful for that, because now I have another professional, that is coming together and giving them strong advice, because they need to seek advice before they make those decisions. Sometimes asking the lender, which is best for them. It may be what's most inexpensive, but it might not be best for them long term. How Ray, as a financial planner, how do you help your clients figure out what they can truly afford when they're buying a house?
Yeah, it really gets into cash flow. What kind of debts do they have? In my opinion, this is just my opinion, what you can afford, or excuse me, what you can get approved for from a loan perspective is very generous, at least in my opinion. And so I might instruct someone in being just a little bit more conservative than going up to the absolute limits of what loan they can get. Now, I think we're all kind of paying attention to the student loan situation, because for a while they weren't counting that, and now they are. And I kind of, I'm empathetic for folks that have student loans, because one day you hear you're going to get $10,000 wiped off, and then you don't. And then there's the people that already paid their loans off, and they're like, well, why don't can I get my money back? It's not an easy situation, but yeah, we kind of just walk through some numbers, and we use some software to kind of give them a sense of, look, this is your payment. How does that feel for your other parts of your plan? Because if you got a house, let's just take an example where someone, maybe they're going on lots of great vacations, or they're spending a lot of money for other things in their plan, but then maybe the house allows them, maybe it's a new house, and maybe now they're working from home, they're not paying, for office lease space, they may have that, or maybe they got a pool in the back, they're able to enjoy that, or they got a gym in it. So there's ways that you can get that house and maybe save on other aspects of what you would spend money on. But, on the flip side, if it's more or less the roof over your head and you still got plenty of other things to do, you just want to kind of be aware of and conscious that don't make it to where you just don't have any room to do fun stuff either. You know what I mean?
Yes, and we are seeing a lot of our younger buyers, they are all about the experiences. And so what we used to look for in a home may not be as important to them. They are looking for lower maintenance homes. They're looking for homes closer to places that they can walk and go to restaurants and shopping. And it's all about the experience. So if it means a smaller house or a townhome, they're okay with that. Low maintenance. It's all about the experience for the younger generation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is people have to remember is, your property taxes, they might be going up, and so you got to factor that in. On the flip side, if you're older, you want to think about what counties are you going in, because maybe your property tax bill goes down.
They do. Yeah. Tax credits.
Yeah, depending on what county you're in.
That's true. Yes, that's for sure. So, how do you think a home typically fits into a client's long-term financial plan or, within their retirement strategy?
Yeah, so I love being a homeowner personally and for a lot of clients. It doesn't mean that everybody should buy a home instead of renting, right? Sometimes the markets change on us, right? The rental market changes, the house market changes. Obviously, someone that has a family with kids and loves the school district they're in, that's probably a good prospect of someone that should probably buy a home and enjoy the benefits of doing whatever you want to the home. But on the flip side, what if you're someone that's, a little unsure about the job situation, family situation? You got some uncertainty there. Renting might make more sense.
Sure.
So, but for the folks that are buying a home, I always try to kind of, tell them too, or share with them the tax benefits, right? It used to be the mortgage interest reduction was a big deal. There was a tax cut in 2017 that made the standard deduction go way up, so less of a big deal for as many people, but it's still important for certain people with second homes or in certain states. From a wealth building standpoint, I love it because now when you sell that home, hopefully the housing market is appreciated, which of course we've seen in dramatic fashion over the last decade or so. But in addition to that, if you're paying a fixed mortgage, every payment you're putting in there, right, a greater amount goes towards the principal. So there's a good chance you got some equity. And then when you sell it, you don't have to worry about capital gains tax up to certain points.
Sure.
So I love that for, let's just say someone is single, they can take $250,000 of profit on their primary home without paying capital gains tax. And they don't even have to put it in the next house if they don't want to. Some people still think that, but that's not the case.
Right.
And then for the married file joint, folks, if they can, get $500,000 of capital gains tax-free, that is a really nice tax benefit there. So, and to be a little bit, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. If someone's going through separation and divorce, unfortunately, they just might want to remember that aspect. If that helps, let's say someone's got $480,000 of capital gains, and then they sell it when they're single versus married. It's just, you got to factor that in. You're going to be paying some capital gains tax. So I love folks being able to buy a home, and if you can stay in it a while, you can make a good profit, and then obviously that can help towards your down payment on the next home.
For sure. Yeah. It's a great way to grow wealth and to use that to invest in another property, for sure.
Well, Dominai, let me ask you a question. Do you or any agents at your office have experience doing 1031 property exchanges?
Yes, we do. And we always recommend a financial planner and a tax accountant immediately. Yes. So tell me a little bit about the 1031 exchange. You mentioned that you don't need to use all your equity. What is a common misconception that you hear? And how do you talk to them about that?
Right. So the thing about the 1031 exchange, in the real estate market, the most important thing is to follow the steps that that's laid out there. And so I share the PDFs with people that kind of gets real specific around having a qualified intermediary. That is one of the most important things you need at the closing table, so that money is going there and you have an opportunity to do it, because you still got to have, identify the properties, you still got to close it in the proper time, and that's like properties, there's a lot of other nuances to it. But one of the trends that I've seen for what we do is something called a 1031 DST, or Delaware Statutory Trust.
Okay.
And so I always say, check with your accountant, make sure they're okay with any of these ideas, and make sure you're following the right guidelines so you're getting what you're trying to accomplish, which is, I don't want to pay a tax on this sale right now. I would like to defer or delay the tax to the future. And so when you do these strategies, that can be done. And who knows, maybe in the future, you're at a lower tax environment and you don't mind realizing a capital gains tax. Or even in today's code, which has been this way for a while, doesn't mean it couldn't change. But right now, what I love about real estate is you can inherit real estate properties from parents or other people, and get what's called a step up in basis. So maybe somebody bought a property for a couple $100,000, and over time their cost basis is down, and now the value is way up higher. They can actually get when someone passes away and it goes to whoever inherits that property, they now get a new cost basis and they don't have to pay so much in tax. So those are some of the other things that I like. And so get back to the 1031 DST, that's kind of I would say it's trending up, is maybe somebody can't find the right property they want. So they may be able to utilize the 1031 DST structure, which just means they're able to take that profit and they put it into a property that's more of a fractional ownership and commercial property.
Yeah.
Could be assisted living, could be a storage place, something that it may be more recessionary proof. And so now they're able to still get income every month, not pay that tax, they're deferring the tax to later. And what I like about those is they could then, maybe it's into the future, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and they're like, you know what, I kind of do want an individual property right now. Can I do a 1031 exchange with that? And the answer would be yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's smart.
And now, a quick message from today's sponsor. If you're looking for advice specific to your situation, then take a look at this episode's sponsor, Southeast Wealth Partners. To learn more about their team and approach, go to southeastwealthpartners.com. Southeast Wealth Partners is a great next step to be financially fluent.
Well, let's see. I was going to ask you some more questions. Let me take a look here. Yeah, when it comes to investments on a property, do you get into the weeds there on what's a good investment property? Like, what are some things that realtors at your office do to help people understand how this is a good investment, or maybe they need to pass on that one?
Well, that's a great question. And we do help our clients evaluate an investment property. And first, we do start with the numbers. I mean, we do have spreadsheets and pro formas to help ensure that they're going to have the cash flow if they're going to hold it, and what they're looking for, like what their expenses are, what their cap rate will be, and what the appreciation could be from this property as well. So it's not just the numbers, but it's also the future appreciation, because again, it is an investment and you want to make sure you're buying in an area that's going to appreciate because you want to hold it. But beyond math, we look at location trends, neighborhood stability, future development plans, tenant demand. Those are all factors that play into whether or not it could be a good investment. Like in the beginning, you might not see a lot of cash flow. I had somebody just buy a property just a little bit ago, and it wasn't a lot of cash flow in the beginning, but the opportunity around it for it to continue to grow. Now, 3 years later, it's cash flowing at a much higher rate, and the area is developing. So that was a good investment because they planned on keeping the property for 10 years or more. That also plays into that as a factor. But it's not just about today's return. It's about long-term value, minimizing risk. We work through questions like, is it an area growing in value? Will this be easy to rent or resell if needed? Are there hidden costs that I'm not thinking about, or things that are going to eat into my profits later on? So a good investment is a smart balance between financial opportunity and future flexibility.
So if someone had a choice between buying an investment property near a Chick-fil-A or a Walmart, which one should they pick?
Yeah, I go for the Chick-fil-A. Go for the Chick-fil-A all day.
Just wondering.
Especially if you can walk to the Chick-fil-A, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you think about rental income, is that, you have an example of what kind of numbers somebody might expect?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, and people have buy boxes, right? I have a lot of investors that I work with and they're like, this is my buy box. I want to be between, under 100,000. I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I want a 2-car garage, no HOA. I don't want any double lines in front of it. Like my investors that I work with, they have certain buy boxes and they repeatedly buy the same type of property over and over because they've developed a model and plan that works. But the first thing I tell anybody that's considering buying a rental property is this is a business. It's not a hobby. You have to treat it like a business. Before you jump in, you need to be realistic about the responsibilities, tenant management, maintenance, legal compliance, budgeting for unexpected repairs, like how much of reserves are you going to have? We need to make sure that you have cash reserves. And because even the best tenants eventually move out and you're going to need to do repairs.
Mm-hmm.
Recommend, also, are you going to self-manage it? Are you going to hire a professional property manager? These are all things that we will talk through and figure in the costs to make sure that you are having the right, cash flow. Some tenants or some investors are good with $200 to $500 a month. Some are not. Some are willing to put more into a property, like they're not going to go out of their buy box, but in today's market, maybe they're having to invest a little bit more than they normally would have to do the repairs on the property. But if they're still getting it at their same buy box, some of them are okay to do that. So it's just talking to them and really understanding, is this truly your buy box and are you going to stick in that? Or, because if this model works for you, then let's make this the parameters to buy the property.
I'm curious too, are you seeing people get real estate license and using it as a second job, side hustle?
Yeah.
What are you seeing? Like, who's kind of making it out there when
Right.
it comes to either whether it's a second career or it's just additional income? And I'm also curious about I'm just curious how they handle their finances as well. But tell us a little bit about folks that are getting into real estate.
Yeah, so it's been crazy. It was a frenzy from 2020 till now. We saw COVID, and the market just take appreciating, in here in Atlanta for, 20% a year. It was crazy when we normally appreciate between 3 and 5% a year. So we saw many agents getting into the market and wanting to have a piece of that pie. What we are seeing now that we're going back to more of a normalized market where it takes maybe 3 months. Average days on market right now in our area, North Metro Atlanta, is around 3 months. So, when we're seeing things start to normalize, we are seeing that the agents who maybe got into the market over the past 5 years when it was a frenzy, and it was more of a speed-based market, they're struggling and having some challenges for sure because it is a skills-based market and they never unfortunately learned the skills because it was such a speed-based market. But we say that 20% of the agents do 80% of the work. Those agents that are fully committed, full-time, real estate is not 40 hours a week. It could be 60 hours a week minimum. So those agents that take it seriously and treat it like a business, just like investing in real estate is a business. If you treat it like a business, you will get back. But what we are seeing is, the efforts that you have to do right now, you may have to do 2 or 3 times more the effort, to get a little bit less of the pie. But at the end of the day, those that are skilled and are top performers, they are still outperforming the market.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Now, when people are getting up there in age, our industry has an opinion about reverse mortgages, but I'm kind of curious, where does the real estate industry fall in that? Because I know the majority, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's got to be at least, I don't know, 80, 90% of mortgages, probably more than that, are forward mortgages or your traditional mortgages.
Sure.
Where do you sit and where does the industry sit as far as just like their thoughts around reverse mortgages?
And I've been hearing that come back a while, for years. we used to hear about it before, but now, during this 2020, these past 5 years, we didn't hear about reverse mortgages, but it is a thing because there are so many homeowners that have equity in their house and paid their homes off, but they don't have any other equity. That might have been the only asset they truly ever developed. So I'm definitely a big proponent of reverse mortgages. I think if you can get your equity out, take care of yourself and take care of your family, I'm a big proponent of it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The industry a few years back really started looking at it like the financial services industry, right? And let's not poo-poo this. Let's really look at it. So a couple of pretty smart people in the industry, like Dr. Wade Pfau and a few others, said, "Hey, this isn't on its face a bad thing. This might be actually a good thing." And so, as far as how I look at it, it's I look at it as, okay, is somebody in their home, and is that the home they want to remain in? Because most people do want to remain in their home, unless maybe they got a master upstairs, they just, don't want to fool with an elevator or going up the railing.
Yeah.
But the folks that have the master on the mains, maybe even if they have someone coming into the home, that they like that. Very few, but there are people that have maybe some kind of insurance policy that helps pay for that.
Sure.
And of course, those people are happy they have it, but then there's plenty of people that don't. And so sometimes that home equity can be something they can use. And then they just got to evaluate, do they want to do it as a line of credit on the home where they have a payment, or do they want to do it as a reverse mortgage and not have a payment? So I can see it in a plan for an existing home. Now, if somebody's going to go buy a home, that's a situation where oftentimes if somebody's in their 60s or so, they want to pay cash for the home.
Yeah.
And that's a great spot to be in. But sometimes what happens is maybe the home they want is a couple of $1,000s more than they got cash to put onto it. And so for those folks, they could use a reverse mortgage to buy the home. Again, this is not a recommendation to use it. It's just an example of how it works. And so in that scenario, my main kind of 2 cents is, are you going to stay in that home a while? Because if you're going to stay in a home a long time, it may be a great thing to think about, right? You're just going to stay in the home and not have a payment anymore. But if you're a little unsure and you might move, pretty soon afterwards, they do cost a lot, right? In the upfront. Long term, maybe not, but in the short run, if you're going to then move in 5 years, that loan's going to cost more than a traditional loan. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, what are some things? I mean, it's definitely a buzzword for sure, and we're seeing it's just a surge in the 55 and older buyer as well and seller. People are thinking long term. They're looking for main level living, like you said. They're looking for different things. And the boomers are a huge part of the market right now. 55 and older is a big segment we're seeing here, and people building homes for that. People are looking for. Buyers today are not looking for 5 years like they were in the past 10 years. Now they're looking for long term. What do I need that's going to last me 20 years or more? And but reverse mortgage is a big, huge keyword, and it's something that we need to talk about to all our seniors that are starting to sell their properties. Some are moving in with family members being taken care of or assisted living facilities. So there are some that just want to, take their equity out. So I feel like it's a big need today.
Yeah.
Ray, what do we need to do as real estate agents? What are some ways that a financial planner can help us with our own personal financials?
Yes. So I think because of my real estate background, I really enjoy, working with some realtors in the area, some mortgage folks, whatnot. But as a realtor, it's really important to have a financial plan, whether you're an established rock star or you're new to it, whether you're coming from another industry or not, but you really should probably be getting some advice on how to get set up. I know your office and plenty of real estate offices do a good job of how do you just handle your cash flow from a standpoint of you got your business expenses and this is how much commission and the activity level. So I just expect the real estate office is going to help folks on the operational side. But what I like to do is get in, and I'm always thinking, whether somebody's a realtor or not, is how can we be tax smart, tax efficient? I don't do tax returns, right? But we do tax planning. So as a matter of fact, I met someone recently that has wrote most of their stuff off and then also adding money to a SEP IRA to reduce their tax bill.
Love that.
And so, I mentioned to the person, say, hey, you could have been putting money into a Roth IRA and getting that money to grow and take that money out later tax free.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does take the sitting down and coming up with a plan, thinking about a couple of things. One's tax efficiency. The other thing's just risk return. So if somebody, that's more of a conversation around how long do they expect to grow that asset, right? So if somebody's going to get, they see money and the account value goes down 1 month or 1 quarter, if that freaks somebody out, then we need to make sure they're invested in something that's not going to freak them out. But I can tell you that from a trend standpoint, solo 401ks, SEP IRAs, those two are pretty popular with realtors. The solo 401k is something you can't really do if you have W-2 employees working for you, or at least if they've been working for you for a while. There are some rules around, just hired somebody, can I wait a little bit? And so, you can set up those type of accounts so that if you have somebody new to the business, it's not going to mess you up. But
for sure.
The solo 401k, what's nice about those is someone could, maybe both spouses are in it and they could both max them out. They could both have loan privileges, or one only makes, $31,000 of income, and they could put about almost that much into a plan. You can't do that with a SEP IRA. You can't do that with a traditional IRA. And then for those mega teams that are out there, the ones that are really large, they maybe have $1 million, $2 million of profit. Is there a way they could reduce their taxable income by $400,000? That's exciting without, writing off a Tesla truck or something like that. This is like money that's in your account that you can have for yourself at retirement. So there's a lot of things out there. And so, like I say, I would just say, definitely meet with an advisor about that. And I highly recommend having a CPA do your taxes.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Think over what's that?
So needed. It's so needed because many real estate professionals, and for years I was guilty of this too. We spend our careers serving others and helping others grow their wealth. And sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to look at our own, right? So, I'm glad that, you have ideas for people and that you continue to talk to real estate agents, because we come across great investments every day, and we need to consider growing our own wealth and taking care of our future as well. And I love the opportunities to also invest in some of these programs, so then you can also purchase homes from those programs as well.
So I know we're getting close to our time here, so let me ask you a question for the audience here. As far as actionable tips, like what would be something, whether they're buying a home or getting ready to sell a home, what would be like a good tip on something they need to be thinking about, whether they're going to buy a home or sell a home?
Yes, definitely. You want to see your reserves. Make sure you have some cash reserves in the bank. 6 months reserves for all your bills, all your finances, all your expenses. So definitely have your credit checked. And I wouldn't say like going online, because those credit scores aren't accurate, but you definitely want to have somebody review your credit report, make sure that it's accurate. So many times I see people out there with things on their credit report that they didn't realize. And if they were to have pulled up their credit report or had it looked at beforehand, it would have made a difference in the interest rate that they receive, because the credit report is directly linked to the credit, to your interest rate that you receive. So I'd say start getting your ducks in a row, making sure that you have, reserves, and you reach out to top professionals, reach out to a financial planner. Do you have options to purchase the home? Do you have some of these IRAs? Do you have some of these solo 401ks in place that you could also draw upon to purchase a property? Definitely reach out to your tax accountant and see what that's going to look like. a lender, and a real estate professional. Surround yourself with professionals that are going to be giving you advice, and so you can make a well-informed decision. What I see many people do, something that happens is they start looking at properties and then they get emotionally involved first. And that's always a slippery slope. You want to make sure that you have things in your financial world and logically set up so that when you start looking at homes, you can make an informed decision instead of going out and finding homes and falling in love with something and then starting to make decisions that way. If that makes sense.
Yes. So, now it got me kind of curious. So let's say someone really wants to move and let's say financially they can qualify to buy another home without selling their home. And so in that scenario, they can go get the home they really want.
Sure.
And maybe not even make it contingent, even though in the back of their mind, they may want to sell it prior to the sale. Do you see much of this?
Yeah.
And what's some of the things that come up in discussion when somebody wants to do it that way?
And those are great. Those are scenarios, and we saw that a lot in the market that we just came out of. We saw many people buying a house first before they ever even sold their house because homes weren't being considered with contingency offers. We are seeing contingency offers now. You don't have the negotiation power when you have a home that is contingent upon selling. However, if you have that financial ability to do that, let's sit down and talk about it. What does that look like? This cost you, and where is the market going? Because if you're buying a house in this market, I want to show you the trends of where you're buying and what does that look like. If you decide to buy now and then you don't sell your house for another 3 to 6 months, what could that potentially look like? Because at the end of the day, it's all about making sure, one, that you get the house that you want, but two, is it a smart financial decision? Like buying this second home now, should your house sell here, are you okay? But should your house sell at a different number, are you still okay? And if it doesn't sell maybe in a month, and if it takes 3 months or 6 months, are you still okay? So we need to plan. We need to really look at everything. You want to look at things logically and emotionally, but at the end of the day, logically start.
All right. Very good. Very good. We got any final thoughts before we sign off today?
No, I just love that. I'm a big proponent of when realtors and financial advisors work together because the client wins every time. When you choose professionals, you get your money's worth and you get what you're paid for because real estate is a major part of somebody's financial portfolio. And when we collaborate together as professionals, it helps clients see the full picture of the home buying and selling process. It helps them, their investments make a bigger impact, and everybody reaches their financial goals.
The other thing that I like about having a realtor that you can count on in your market is they always have or not always, but most of them have connections on, hey, I need a flooring person. I need a countertop person. I need a this. I need a that. And on the contracting side, I feel like they're always well connected, and I really appreciate that.
Yes, and people that do a lot of work for us, they do a great job for our clients because we continually refer them. And then it's a vetted contractor, and it just keeps things, the process moving faster, and that you're getting quality work, and it's they're anxious to please because they want to continue having the referrals for sure.
Well, Dominai, like I said, we've known each other a while. This has been great.
Yes.
Doing this podcast together. When you get in your car later, be sure and put on a little Nirvana music.
I was in college back then, so I'm not gonna say, yeah. But this is fun. This is good. Thank you so much. I learned a lot today.
Take care. I'll see you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financially Fluent podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
This communication is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult with a qualified tax professional, accountant, or legal advisor regarding your specific situation before making any financial decisions. Investment advisory services are provided only in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Ray's opinions are not based on the specific financial situation of any investor, so they may be unsuitable for some investors. The information on Financially Fluent does not constitute a solicitation of the sale or purchase of securities. You should consult a professional advisor before executing a security trade or taking any other action based on information contained in this program. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Zake Wealth, Inc., member, FINRA SIPC. Mosaic Wealth is separately owned and/or other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Mosaic Wealth.